Hey there friends, today we're going to be unraveling the differences between ReactJS and React Native. Are you ready to dive into the world of web and mobile development? Let's get started. ReactJS and React Native are two popular technologies that have a lot in common. But what sets them apart? And when should you use one over the other? Which should you start by learning? We're about to dive deep into their common core and their differences, some glaringly obvious and others quite subtle. And by the end, you'll have the means to make an informed decision for your next project. And I'll give you pointers for the cases when you need to use both. But before we dive deep, let's get the glaringly obvious out of the way from the start. ReactJS is used for building web interfaces. React Native is primarily used to develop mobile applications. But I think you probably knew that already. I mean, there's a clue in the name. So let's start exploring what React Native and ReactJS have in common. ReactJS and React Native are open source libraries developed by Facebook that share several core concepts and features. In particular, ReactJS and React Native share the same React core, which includes the underlying algorithms for handling state, components, and rendering. If you're familiar with ReactJS, you should have no trouble adapting to React Native, and vice versa. This also means that ReactJS and React Native use components, and components encourage reusability and modularity. Both libraries also use JSX, a syntax extension for JavaScript that allows you to write HTML-like code within JavaScript. Both libraries also share how they manage state and props, and both libraries support React hooks, which simplify component logic and encourage the use of functional components. Although ReactJS and React Native share these core concepts, they have different purposes and target platforms. This has several implications for the differences between the two libraries. Let's explore those now. First, ReactJS uses standard HTML elements as components, for example, div, span, and img, while React Native has specific components, that is to say view, text, image, for example, that map to native UI elements on the target platform. Although a view component maps conceptually to a div and a text component maps, for example, to a span, they're not precisely the same, and the differences might actually trip you up. Whereas ReactJS renders these components to HTML and CSS, React Native renders components using native UI components of the target platform. In the same way, ReactJS uses standard CSS for styling and layout. Using CSS in ReactJS, you can use classes, media queries, and animations. React Native, on the other hand, uses what feels like a subset of CSS styling. For example, it only supports Flexbox layout, and its defaults are not the same as the web's. Likewise, navigating between screens is URL-based using ReactJS, typically using the React router library. However, you don't navigate between views with URLs on mobile, so React Native recommends that you use the React navigation library. And of course, you can test ReactJS output directly in your browser, but you're better off using Expo to supplement React Native, and you'll need simulators and Android and iOS SDKs. Ideally, you also need to test on physical devices. But what if you can't choose? What if you need to create a website and an app? What then? The best solution is to share code between React Native and ReactJS, or more precisely between React Native and Next.js, which is quickly becoming the reference implementation of React-based websites, as I've explained in a previous video. And your best bet in this case is to use a mono repository setup that allows you to share code and logic across both applications. One solution is T3 Create Turbo, which is a monorepo that uses Turbo Repo, Expo, Next.js, Prisma, and tRPC. Another solution that I've encountered is Tamagui, a UI component library that allows you to set up a common interface language. And the starter for Tamagui also sets up a monorepo with Next.js and Expo, that is to say with React Native and ReactJS. In addition, it relies on the Slito library, which allows you to share navigation logic between React Native and ReactJS. Now, which should you start with when you're learning? If you're wondering which to learn, I recommend starting with ReactJS. Why? For two reasons. First, all the basics of ReactJS apply to React Native. In fact, React Native documentation will regularly refer you to the ReactJS website for further reading. Second, the ReactJS tutorial, particularly the tic-tac-toe project on the website, is very well made and educational. It's how I started learning React a few years back, and the tutorial has stood the test of time. And if you want to keep learning with me, well, I'll see you in the next video.